So good morning, everyone. Apologies for the slight delay there. My name is Joanne Creevy, and I'm a member of the client services team here at Canor Finance and Business Services. So you're all very welcome to our business growth webinar series. Today's topic is ready to grow your business. And today's session will cover three areas to help you prepare for successful funding. So building your investor. So we'll discover what critical data to include and how to maintain it to impress investors and avoid delays. We'll learn best practices for accurate cap table management and setting up a share option pool and avoiding common mistakes. We'll share some insights into key clauses, potential pitfalls, and strategies for negotiating fair founder-friendly agreements. So today's host is Roisin McCahey. Roisin is our head of company secretarial at Canor, and we're thrilled to be joined by our guest speaker, Michael McDolan, country manager of Seed Legals, who will share his expert insights in today's webinar. So I'll just hand you over to Roisin and Michael just to give a quick introduction to yourself. So Roisin, maybe if I come to you first.
Perfect. Thanks, Joanne. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's Business Growth webinar. As Joanne mentioned, I'm Roisin Mulcahy. I'm the head of the company secretarial team here at Canor. A little bit of background about me and my team. What we do is we help all of our current clients and any potential clients with bringing their business ideas to life, their annual filings. We keep them compliant with company law. We help them structure, support their meetings, records, and we help them to identify further areas of growth. This year alone, we have helped 300 clients bring their businesses to life. We have facilitated over 450 annual general meetings and have completed just over 1,000 annual filings. So that's just a small bit about myself and my team and what we do. And now I'm going to pass you over to Michael, who is our guest speaker today.
So good morning, everyone. So I'm Michael McDowell from Seed Legals, Ireland Country Manager. So we at Seed Legals work very closely with mainly early stage companies who are planning to raise investment to scale and grow their businesses. Our platform gives them the opportunity to create all those essential first agreements, co-founder agreements, team contracts, and then we can also work to help you manage out your cap table, so you can manage out how your company looks in terms of who the shareholders are, and then plan out funding rounds. And we also provide documentation for the completion of funding rounds and share option schemes. So Roisin, will I just start going through a few of the slides and we'll just kick off?
Perfect. And if anyone has any questions throughout the session, they can pop them in and Joanne will ask them on your behalf.
And can I just note as well, I suppose, before we begin the webinar, that it is for general guidance only. For specific advice related to your business, it's always best to consult with an expert. And if you need any further guidance afterwards, I will share the details for Canor and also Michael's details there as well. But yes, as Roisin said, we do encourage your participation throughout the session. So feel free to use the Q&A or chat function, and I will be able to feed those questions over to Michael or Roisin. So thank you. So yeah, ready to get going. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, I think what we're going to talk about here really today is raising investment for companies that are planning to scale and grow using external investment over probably multiple funding rounds. Many businesses grow and scale in different ways. Small businesses would more traditionally use debt finance and rely on revenue and sales to help grow their business. Similarly, family businesses would often grow in that same way. But more startup companies, usually seen in the tech sector or other areas, who plan to use external investment, scale and grow very quickly. They have to use outside investment. And so Roisin, these are the key sort of four areas where I see the investment coming from. Would that be your experience as well?
Yeah, definitely. For small, medium enterprises that join us, that's definitely true. These would be the four key areas.
And I think engaging with these people, you'll often approach them and the conversations will be different. But I think the most important thing for a company owner or founder to realize is that you need those foundations and that preparation to be well in place because you never know really which of these sort of areas of investment the money's going to come from. Just go to the next slide. But yeah, and these are the common themes. These are the things that will give a potential investor confidence in you as a business. The quality of the team, people who understand their sector, people who understand their product, understand the solution that they're trying to solve, and also evidence that they have executed, can deliver on things. Delivery is absolutely everything, and being able to display that is good. And a lot of the team performance and what you do during the funding round sort of reflects in how you run your wider business. And that sort of level of professionalism sort of comes through everything. The other areas such as market opportunity, the quality of your product, traction, that you've got some customers and people showing that what you're building is actually needed and wanted by people, and showing that you're moving quickly, I think are all very important. Rosie, do you think any of these are particularly more important than the others, or do you think it's always a bit of a blend and a mix?
I think it's very much a blended mix, but from any of our clients who have gone through this process, the key learnings they've taken away is based on your first point, which is the team and the team that they have, because sometimes the initial team they have when they start this off is not the team that they end up with as they go through the rounds. So it's how to navigate that element of the journey, I suppose. So like you said, having a team that's well prepared to show how professionally their business is run.
Absolutely, and I think it's funny. One of our most common products that people, or contracts that people use in our platform, are co-founder agreements and early team agreements. Because yeah, I'd hate to put a statistic onto the percentage of founding teams who don't make it through together. It's natural. It's what happens. People go in with one vision and it can go slightly different directions. But having a nice prenup in place can make that divorce so much quicker and easier, and less expensive in terms of what it might cost you in legal fees and things like that. But I think what we're talking about here are foundations. And I think that's where the data room piece comes into play. Why we talk about this at very early stage is because you never know when you're going to meet a potential investor. We were chatting yesterday about this webinar, and came into mind a company who I know very well who found their first investor. And I was saying yesterday, I can't remember whether they met the first investor in the butchers or the greengrocers in Moira in County Down. But it was a chance encounter, chance conversation, which then led to that person saying, I love what you're doing. I'd love to get involved. I'd love to invest. Where can I find out more information? And the thing that you want to be able to do is, when you find someone who asks you that, to have everything ready to go. Doesn't necessarily have to be every piece of information imaginable, but you need to have those foundations in place so you can quickly get the information through to people, because you don't want to be the barrier or the thing that slows an investment round down. You want to be in the front foot as much as you can. So that's why we always recommend using a data room somewhere online in the cloud where you can store all the information about your company. It has to be secure. And we'll go through and talk about the specific information you want to keep in there. And as I said, our stage, I think as soon as you start the company, be conscious of this, have those folders ready. So when you're doing different bits of work, different bits of market research, onboarding new team members, and developing new bits of your tech stack or something, if you just store information around that as you go along, it just makes it all so much easier. And I think, Roisin, that also comes down to your filings and things as well. Making sure that you start well organized is really important.
Yeah. Ensuring that you have all of your annual filings, regardless of whether you're in the first year of your business journey or the 10th year of your business journey. Like Michael said, if you started early on, you'll set yourself up for success, and keeping on top of those filings is key to remaining compliant.
And I'll just use this as an example. This is the Seed Legal's pitch page. So if you are in a position where you're ready to start reaching out to investors or ready for those chance encounters, something like the Seed Legal's pitch page is a good place there where you can store all your information. Similarly, using Dropbox, Orange Docs, or even a Google Drive, whatever you use, just make sure that you keep it up to date, you have it nicely secured, and you track whoever gets to look at it and see it. So
And Michael, have you any top tips for anyone who's attending today on how they keep it up to date, or how often, or how regular, or, in your experience, which of your potential clients or existing clients, how do they manage theirs?
I think they when there's a significant, so you get your foundations in place, you get all your files and folders open, and then once you complete a new piece of work, whether that's hitting a milestone in your tech build, or if it's completing a new piece of market research, or if it's onboarding some new customers or a new sales strategy, just add it in there at that point, as it goes along. Yeah, I think we'll come on to sort of updating investors and shareholders a little bit later on, but I think that communication piece as well and having things up to date just helps. Also, you're always teeing up for the next round and things as well, so you just want to keep everybody excited with what you're doing.
Yeah,
Michael, Michael, can I ask a question? For example, if an investor approaches you and you're not ready, what
Yep.
would you say is the first step on getting ready to be able to go for investment?
I think the first step is really that initial conversation with that investor. So get an understanding of what the investor's background is and what their interest is. Most investors come from potentially finance or accountancy backgrounds, or they come from a very tech background or the industry background that they really understand. So what you want to understand is what's their key interest in your business and what's going to be the thing that's going to get them most interested. And if they're a techie founder, I'd be sharing out the tech stack, sharing out the information about the product, because that's what's going to get them interested. Similarly, if they're a real numbers person, try and get some nice sales projections in place, a good understanding of your cost base is going to be, and a nice P&L to show how the company's going to grow and what your confidence is. Or if they're a more marketing person, that business, that sales strategy, because really what you want to do is tell them what they want to hear. I always find it funny when you give someone a physical pitch deck and you've maybe got a group of investors and you see them pick up the pitch deck. None of them sit and carefully read each page. All of them flick through to the page that is the thing that they care and know the most about. So just getting that good understanding. It's a bit like a sales job. Understand your customer and sort of give them what they want.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
helpful.
think in follow up to what Joanne has just said, it's fair to say that when you're creating this, you're not creating this just for one element, it's for multiple elements. So it's for your tech type investor, your numbers type investor, you're trying to target your audience, I suppose, is the best thing to say.
Absolutely. And just try and we all, as well as founders, have a particular area of the business we're most interested in as well, and the bit that we really don't like. So try and fight that natural instinct that, oh, we'll get round to the numbers later. If that's how you feel about it, get a good accountant who you know well, who understands your sector, and work with them to get some nice frameworks in place.
Great.
Oh, this always happens. Let me see, sorry. Right, okay. Right, so let's dig a little bit deeper into some of the information that you should really be thinking about pulling together. And these are the sort of the key folders that you have in there. I think the pitch deck's quite interesting. You're going to have multiple pitch decks, similarly, depending who it is you're talking to and what you're using it for. A pitch deck, if you're invited to a pitching event, one of the many that are out there, that deck's going to have an awful lot less words in it than one you're going to send out to someone. Pitch videos are getting increasingly common as well. A nice 3-minute video explaining what it is that you do, using a Loom video if you have a platform or a software demonstrating how that works, and just speaking straight to camera. That is getting increasingly important. Your investment proposal, which will come into term sheets and things later, but having a very clear ask of what it is that you want, what money you want, how much of your business you're prepared to give away, having that proposal ready, good, shows that you're in the front foot and shows that you know what you're asking for, rather than vague conversations around it. And then just some nice stuff about the size of your market, the size of your business, where you are and how you're going about it. And I think further down the line for due diligence, people will want to start to see things like customer contracts and things as well, just to support any claims or things that you make. But just having everything together is the key issue.
So, Michael, looking at the list you have there, under the commercial aspect of it, you've a pitch deck and an investor deck. I guess for anyone who's attending today, what's the difference?
So the pitch deck would be more the thing that you present that just tells the nice story around the business of what you're doing. And then the investor deck would probably go into a little bit more detail around the investment proposal, the numbers, what it is that you're actually what you're actually offering, and details about your valuation, how you came about with that. So just going into that little bit more detail. It's a gradual dating process as well. So you don't give too much away too soon, and then you just gradually share what you're prepared to. We then go into some more of the details around the finances. Now, obviously, it depends on the size and the age and the scale of your business, whether you're able to even produce or share management accounts. But I think this is where you sort of want to get to, and things you may likely get asked about. I've added in there down at the bottom some lovely little acronyms. So I think your TAM, SAM, and so on, that's really just the market size that you're talking about. How big is the market that you're going after, and just some numbers around that. And then the unit economics of CAC and LTV, that's very much for software companies, talking about SaaS models and recurring revenue and numbers of customers you have, how long they stay on their platform, breaking down those unit economics, because you get SaaS investors or a sort of a class under themselves who aren't happy unless they're seeing those lovely statistics being produced for them, which in the same way, it's the same as if you're involved in a property business, you understand that the bank or any investor is going to be looking at your leases and the length of leases and your loan to value and all that sort of stuff. So it's just the world that we're in. I've added in there EIS or SEIS certification. So those are the schemes that the Irish Revenue and the UK HMRC have introduced to help encourage people to invest into early stage companies. EIS here in Ireland gives investors sort of good tax relief. And there's a little bit of organisation to be done to get that in place. So if that's something that you're interested in or thinking about, I know we can introduce you to accountants who can do that. Is that something wishing you guys can help with, or would you use a third party to do that?
We can offer some support and guidance on it, but it isn't a standalone service we currently offer. But if anyone here on the call is interested at the webinar, they can reach out for more details. Joanne and I and the team would be happy to support.
That's great. And then similarly, if you're planning to go across to the UK or Northern Ireland and get investors from there who might want SEIS tax relief, we can help talk you through how that works. And there's a little bit of Intertrade Ireland funding available to help people get their SEIS organised. So just ask me directly about that. We can help get that organised. Yeah, and I think other things just I've listed there, grants, if you're getting some support from Enterprise Ireland, just have details of what that support looks like. And similarly, CLNs and safes, if you've already a convertible loan note, so if you've already taken on some investment from investors in the form of a convertible loan note, which is a loan to the company, which you will either repay or repay as shares, and a safe, which is a contract with an investor who says, I will give you money today, but when you do your full funding round, we'll convert that money into shares at a discount. So if those are sort of ways you're thinking of raising investment as well, we can chat through the specifics of how those work. But really, in terms of data rooms, it's just having full information of all of this stuff. So when they look at your accounts and there's things mentioned, you have supporting documentation and it's all nicely organized.
And I think it's really important to note at this point, especially around the financials, that you have a really good relationship with whoever is preparing your books and records. so that your data room information is accurate and correct. And like Michael says, making sure that the accountant that you're working with, or indeed your company secretary for your filings, understands and knows your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And then some legal documentation that you should just have nicely arranged and filed, and obviously that's what we do at Sea Legals. We'll talk a little bit about cap tables in a minute. Founder agreements, yeah, having nice agreements between your team and everything who's there, and any other consultants or anyone else you have there. Make sure that everyone has a contract. Just keeps things neater and tidier. And then I think, as Roshi mentioned, all your CRO filings, make sure they're all nicely up to date. If you're carrying out a regulated activity, make sure you understand what compliance needs to be in place, and make sure that you are, if you're building something from scratch and you're not really in the position to maybe have the full authorization, detail out what it is that you're going to be going to get and use, and have a clear understanding. And if you are involved in a fintech company, Fintech Ireland and the Fintech Corridor guys are very good at talking through what sort of regulatory and what compliance stuff you need. And there's really good consultants out there who can help you with that. But other things, if you're straying into an authorized area, just make sure you understand that world that you're in. And then obviously having just share certs and trademarks, just all the things that you would expect to have as a business, and that Rush and her team help put together for you. Make sure you store it all nicely in one place so it's easily accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And then your data room for the technology side of things. Now, I'm not a techie, and I love having conversations with techies about what they have in their tech stack and what they share and what they don't share. Yeah, techies will understand what other techies want to see and want to read, and what you should have in there. From the more boring side of things, I like to make sure that everyone understands, if you are using lots of different APIs and things that are plugged in, make sure you understand what the costs are all around them. Make sure you understand what the licenses are around all of those, and make sure that everything, you understand what happens when it grows and scales, and have all the details of those. I think the only thing I probably should have included there was pen testing. It's increasingly important that your cybersecurity is very tight as well. A lot of funds and a lot of investors will potentially, before they make an investment, will ask if you can do an independent security check on your technology. And you'll have to probably pay for that as part of the round. But cybersecurity is just becoming increasingly important. Make sure you have that, and similarly other regulatory stuff as well. So, but I'm sure your good CTO will understand all this and have the experience of it.
And I think just before you move on, it's worthwhile saying that if you don't necessarily have someone on your team currently that has that level of experience, it's good to reach out to your trusted partner and get recommendations. I think that's a fair point, Michael, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I think, yeah, it's one of those tricky things for very early stage founders. If they start using simple off the shelf technology to build the thing that they're doing, because they understand the problem they have and they find little fixes to do it, there will come a point where you need a proper CTO, and trying to get that as early as possible is great, because they'll want to do it in a certain way. So you want to get them on board. And I think if you have a great idea and you're building something, you're not sure what to do, there's co-founders program at Catalyst in Belfast, which helps connect technology experts with non-technologists to build things. Similarly, Dogpatch have the founder program, which tries to do that. And I think hanging out in places like Dogpatch or Portershed, in Galway, or Republic of Work in Cork, or the RDI hub in Kerry, or further in Dublin, or the local BICs, they all have aspirational people who want to build things, and you can often find a technology co-founder there. Or if you're a technology person who doesn't have any commercial background, they can also make those connections. So it's always really useful to do.
No, that's great.
And then into sort of data room governance. So, Russian board minutes, shareholder updates,
Exactly.
ESG statements. What million of other things have I left off my slide here that I should have included?
So with board minutes, there has to have been a board meeting. You can't produce minutes for a meeting that hasn't occurred. And that's really, really important for not just for the data room, but for the general, running of your business. If you're at that very early stage, it may just be you and your co-founder, but as your business grows and scales, you will at some point appoint your board. And it's really important that you have regular scheduled board meetings, that you have a structure to those, and that they produce board minutes, and that the board minutes are circulated so that everybody understands what the ultimate goal, and progress of the company is. Shareholder updates. As Michael has said, you may be at your first round of funding, or you could be at your second or third round of funding. And ultimately, this may have impacts to your shareholding. So it's really, really important to keep, your shareholding up to date. And for many people who may have gone through this before, or who are just thinking about starting on this journey, that the shareholding you have at incorporation is not necessarily the shareholding you will have 6, 12, or 18 months down the line. So it's really important that if you're considering, making a change to your shareholding, whether that's, adding more shares, removing shares, selling shares, that you speak to an expert in that field to make sure that you're doing it correctly, so that, ultimately you're not devaluing your company.
Yeah, I think also those shareholder updates are really good if you're planning to raise further investment. If you keep people up to date of what you're doing, of how the company's growing, they're going to understand why you want more investment, because they will have seen you talking about wanting to break into a new market, or building out your team, or doing stuff which is going to require capital. So when you then go out and ask them for money, they're gonna understand why, and there's a very good chance that they're going to follow on and invest again, because they can see where the value's coming from, and it's going to strengthen the value of the company and the original investment. So it's really important to keep people up to date, because if you just randomly let them know you're doing a new fund round, they'll just panic and think you've just blown all their cash. So just keep everyone informed, everyone involved. Also, when things start to get difficult, as inevitably things do, you want to be able to rely on your shareholders, and your board, if you have one as well. You want them to be there in good times and bad times and be supportive. And we all know people are more supportive if they're well informed and know what's going on. No one likes surprises. I've mentioned ESG statement here. Increasingly, that's getting important. A lot of the investment funds have a requirement to invest in this X number of companies who are trying to do really positive ESG type things. Also, some of them have to ask for it and say it. So make sure it's something that you're involved in. Is that something that you guys see a lot of, Rosie, now, ESG? And
it's starting to become much more apparent now. And for anyone on the webinar today who's not sure what it is, it's basically your business's commitment to sustainability moving forward. So it's your environmental, social, and governance statement. So it's just making sure that when you're setting your business up for the future, that it is sustainable moving forward. And it's definitely something we're seeing an increase in. And for new companies coming along, they're asking for that to be, incorporated into their constitution, or making sure that, if they already have a board in place, that it's something that's on their agenda regularly.
Yeah. Yeah, also a lot of tenders ask for it as well. So yeah, something just to bear in mind. Okay, so those are sort of the big sweeping sort of statements. Just going to go into a little bit of detail around your pitch deck itself. So this is sort of the main thing that you'll send out to investors that you bump into. And in italics here, it just sort of mentions, just links back to the data room as well. So this is really sort of your shop window, so to speak, that things get added into and then sent back with. What I also like to see is that it's branded and consistent with your business as well. So everyone can recognize the business through the pitch deck. If you've got certain branding in a pitch deck and then different branding on your website, people just get very confused very quickly. So just keep it all nice and neat, the same thing. And then increasingly, investors want to see 2-pagers. Yeah, I think they like to see a 2-pager because then they can go and talk they like to see it summarized in the 2 pages, so they can then bring potentially other investors in alongside them, and they can share that out quickly with them, and they can tick off whether it fits their investment criteria. And I mentioned ChatGTP there. Yeah, so if you've got ChatGTP, you can upload your pitch deck, ask it to do a 2-page summary, and it produces a really nice 2-page summary. Also, if you're going to HBAN, which is the sort of the national angel investment network, they only really look at 2-pagers rather than pitch decks. So having that available for them is good as well. So we've talked a lot about raising investment. We've talked about what you need in your data room, what you need to have put together. But what we thought might be quite useful was to go into a little bit of detail about what it actually means to raise investment for your company. Yeah, we all know that raising investment, you're selling shares in your business. But what is often quite complicated is, yeah, how did I can't even Roisin, I can't even explain what it is that I know that you're going to explain. So what is the difference between authorized share capital and issued share capital and shares in your business?
Yeah. So authorized share capital is when you are setting up your business first, you decide that I want to have 1 million shares in my company for argument's sake, and that number is up to you. You can pick it, right? It can be 100, 1,000, 1 million, Generally speaking, in our experience, most clients that come to us as a new business, they will generally have authorized share capital of about 100,000 shares. So they basically sit in the cloud, for want of one word. They're what you hope to have as your ultimate shareholding of your business. Your issued share capital is what you issued the day that you open the doors to your company, and that's specific to you. So you can issue on day one, 1,000 shares, 10 shares, 50 shares, whatever you want to do. But you specify an amount on those issued shares, whether the value be €1, €10, or €100. So if you issued on day one 100 shares and you valued them at €1 each, you would have to put that €100 for those 100 shares into your company bank account, and that's what your company is. Now, you might still have your other remaining, 99,000 shares sitting, authorized share capital is sitting in the cloud, so that when you eventually bring on investors or new shareholders, you can then take those shares from the authorized shares and eventually issue them at a later date.
Roisin, can I ask, how does a new business decide what amount, like you mentioned there, 100, 1,000, 1 million? How can a new business decide which is the best option for them?
So what we would always say, we give a recommendation in the company secretarial team, that they would issue, 10,000 shares. If they're going to be a solo director at this point, depending on the growth plan they have for their business, we find that most people who are brand new in their journey that don't have a clear path on where they want to go, they will take that best advice from us. But if somebody else, Joanne, has come on and they already know, to Michael's point, that they're going to go to Michael's platform or to a platform like it, and they're going to seek investment from 5, 6, 7 different investors, and in order to do that, they're going to give away X number of shares, then that's when we would recommend increasing it. What we always say is, when you're incorporating your business first, your ultimate goal is for you to grow your business, but for you still to maintain the most control of it. So that's where we would give the advice on the number of shares. And it is specific to individuals. So, our compliance lead, Janice, would have a call with you if you're unsure or uncomfortable about the number of shares that you want to issue, and she'd talk you through that process.
That's brilliant, Roisin. Thanks for clarifying that.
I think one of those other things. I think it's that planning piece, isn't it, as well? It's
Yeah.
sitting down right at the beginning and saying, right, am I going to create a business that I'm going to grow myself? I'm not going to need external money. I'm just going to try and grow it like a small traditional business.
Yeah.
But if you do know on day one that you really, and a lot of experienced investors or experienced founders who might have been through this before will know that I'm going to do I'm going to pull together some capital just to get the thing going myself. Then I'm going to bring in some more money to try and get to stage one. Then we're going to do a series A, and then we may do another funding round after that. So I think, as you said, the planning for that, because like there's ways around this. If you don't have enough issued shares and share capital and things, you can do a share split, isn't that right? So you can fix this as you go along.
Yeah, so you can do, share conversions, share allotments. If people leave the business, you can do share transfer. And that's why you only ever issue a certain amount, and then you have your authorized share capital in the cloud that you can, take on at a later, that you can take on, issue them later. Now, you can also change your authorized share capital in the future if your business changes and you realize that actually, 100,000 shares is not the right move for me. I actually need much more based on the number of investors. And you would do that by amending your constitution, which, our team can support you with that by helping you complete that, making sure it's compliant, and then filing it with the company's registration office or with, Companies House in the UK if you need to make a change to your constitution there too.
Roisin,
Okay.
that's just a perfect. We had a question in there, just, and I think you've covered that. How do you increase the number of shares allocated in the company? So I think you've explained that well. So Andrew, thanks for your question. If you have anything to follow on from that, and let us know.
And it's really important to note as well, Michael has it there, under share splits and share classes. Traditionally speaking, most people, when they incorporate their company, they just have one type of share. But if your company is incorporating and you have very specific guidelines around investment or funding, your investors might want you to have a specific share type. And that means then you would be incorporating your company with a bespoke constitution that's specific to your company. And that's something we can support with. Last year, we had a client who incorporated with us who had 15 different share types based on the different investors and employee shareholdings that he was going to be offering as a benefit. So, with share structures and share types, it's really important that you understand what's right for your business, and we can support you with that.
I think it's also probably worth mentioning being careful around giving shares to early employees.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to give somebody shares, but it's incredibly difficult to get shares back off people. Is that a fair observation?
No, and I mean, Michael and I have a mutual client who like that, who gifted somebody shares in the very early days, and then they've parted ways, and trying to redeem those shares was proving quite challenging. And it meant, there was lots of things around filings he wanted to do with the company and grow it, that because this person was a majority shareholder, he couldn't do a lot of things without that person's consent. So a lot to do with when you're looking at your share structure is as well is the rights of that shareholder, and how much influence they have over your business.
Yeah, and I think don't be afraid of using share options comparatively early. You might feel that you're not a big enough or mature enough company to have a share option scheme in place, but if you have a number of staff and you want to incentivize them to stay with you through as the company grows all the way to exit, share options are going to be the best way of doing that, just to keep control of your cap table and of your shareholding. Okay. And yeah, I mean, we often talk about a clean cap table, and these are just some things that we see on sea legals where funding rounds get very difficult and complicated and don't close. Sometimes because people have borrowed money on bad terms, or they've got convertible loan notes, which are going to be effectively give external people too much control over the business as well. And just keep an eye on things like liquidation preferences and voting rights, and minority shareholders with too many rights. It's one of the challenges we spend a lot of time trying to explain to sometimes EIS funds and different funds who want to invest in the Irish companies, when they see that the rights that Enterprise Ireland ask for when they do a match funding piece. Enterprise Ireland will possibly only own 5% of your business, but they'll want to have the same voting rights and the same rights as someone who owns about 30-40% of the company. So I think it's important, if people want to invest and have specific rights, that it's fully understood and fully explained, and that it's a positive thing, not a negative. But speak to ourselves at Sea Legals, or Roisin and her team, or another lawyer who can always explain what different rights and different preference shares and things mean as the company goes along and scales, so you can make a good call on it.
And it's
sort
always,
oh, sorry, go.
I was always going to say, we would always recommend, in best practice, if you're unsure, that you do, like Michael says, seek legal advice, because this is your business. And once you've committed to, you know, a specific shareholder and a share type, you are tied to the rights of that, you know, as outlined in your constitution and your documents. So it's really important that you understand it and that it's right for your business.
Yeah, I think understanding your constitution is not, that's really everything.
Yeah.
Like that's, yeah. I know it's funny. Yeah. If in doubt, check your constitution. Is that, how often, is that sort of a common secretariat world sort of theme statement? Have you checked
Yeah,
your
I mean,
constitution?
check your constitution. You know, the Companies Registration Office and Companies House both provide you, you know, with a standard constitution, you know, for all, you know, limited companies in Ireland, which is great. But that doesn't always suit every business's needs. And that's why, you know, we have a bespoke constitution service, because it factors in every business's rights and needs. And like you said, when, you know, Enterprise Ireland do their match funding, which is great, and it helps so many businesses grow, but also the impact that that has if there's specific voting rights being assigned, or any investor that comes on and wants, you know, X percentage of your company, but wants to be able to navigate the running of it on a daily basis. You have to make sure that that's the ultimate right choice for you. And that's why we would always recommend making sure your constitution matches. And you can amend your constitution after you've incorporated, as your business grows and scales, because what was right for you in, you know, year one of your business is not necessarily right for you in year three. And in order to keep you right and current and compliant, we do recommend reviewing your constitution on a yearly basis and making sure that it's still accurate.
Michael, I suppose for like a new startup business, how can they decide like what type of investor is best fit to grow their business?
I think often it's trying to find, right at the beginning, you want someone who shares your vision and can give you support more than just cash. You really want someone who's going to help lift and carry your business forward. And I think it's that honesty piece as well when you both chat. I was at a recent angel investor event, and there was a panel, and one of the ladies who was talking mentioned that she likes to invest and exit between 3 and 5 years. Now the other panelists said, well, that's completely unrealistic, you'll never be able to do that. But as she explained, but if I work with a company who are at a certain stage and we agree that strategy and that's what we're both going to work together to achieve, then there's absolutely no problem with that, because you're almost putting the for sale sign up on day one. But that's about that honesty between the investor and the company, and everyone having a shared vision. I think that's most important.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And I think this is sort of where it then comes down to the agreement that you have with that potential investor. So a term sheet essentially is basically your best way to describe it. This is what you lay out to an investor, what they're going to get if they put money into your company. This is what the valuation of your company is. This is how many shares you're going to get in the company. And as an investor, you're going to have your rights as an investor, but also will include drag along rights, which drag along and tag along. So that's all about future investment rounds. making sure that you as an investor have the opportunity to continue investing into the company and being part of it as it grows. You as an investor can have certain consents, and that often comes down to potentially, if you go out, consent to go out for another investment round, consent to have a share option scheme. Sometimes it can be even consent to make large capital investments or spends. So you just have to be careful around those, that they're sensible. We've seen a few mistakes where people have investor consents around recruitment of certain members of staff or teams. So you don't want to have any investor rights that are going to slow you down as a business, particularly if you've got institutional investors. I think that's one of the challenges about if you take investment from Invest NI or Enterprise Ireland or some of the European EU funds and things. They can be incredibly slow to sign things off because of the number of companies they have in their portfolios. Somebody goes off on holiday for 2 months and nothing gets done. That sort of old school civil service things that us in the private sector don't fully understand a lot of the time. So make sure that you can manage those consents well. Similarly, board members and observers and things as well. Often an investor will want a board seat or just an observer seat. That comes down to the relationship you have with them and whether you feel they can add value in your board. There's very little point having someone on your board who can't add any value. But you can get around that with regular shareholder updates. Just to mention the liability cap and floor. That's usually so you're going to make loads of claims in your data room and everything that we've spoken about before. If it turns out that something in there isn't true or doesn't get fulfilled as you said it was going to, there is recourse from the investors for some compensation, and often that's set at a year's salary of the founder. But as no one on this call would ever make any untruths or make any mistakes like that, it's not something you need to worry about. And the last thing about it in there is instant investment. That's a little bit of seed legal speak. Really what it means is that you set out in your term sheet and you say you're going to raise X amount of money and close on a certain date. What you want to also include there is the potential for a little bit more money to come into the company as well if it appears after the closing of the funding round. I think it's just a line you can have in a term sheet just to make sure that you can continue to raise money once the shares have been issued, just so you don't miss out any future opportunities there as well. And I think as we were chatting about this presentation yesterday, you're going to prepare this lovely term sheet, slide it across the desk to a potential investor. There's a very good chance they will then say that's lovely and slide theirs across the desk at you with their things in it. So as Roisin said, if you get another term sheet from someone else and you're not sure of what it says in it, bring it to a solicitor so they can talk you through everything and explain what it means and what they're trying to do. And you can take it from there. But these are all negotiation pieces as well. What you'll probably find is the final term sheet is somewhere in between the two. But by you having one and you sliding one across the desk shows that you're trying to keep control of your business and you know what you want and what you're trying to achieve. Is there anything there, Roisin, to think of particular?
No, I think just, yeah, like you said, as you sit down with potential investors, they will have their own term sheet, with their agenda on it too. But I think in my experience from many of our clients who've been through this before, they've said being well prepared with their term sheet has really helped navigate the business conversation for them with their investor, because the investor knows exactly what they want to get out of this relationship. And equally, if there is anything on the alternative term sheet, like you said, they don't understand or they're not sure of, just get it checked out, by your legal advisor to make sure that it's in the best interests of your business.
Absolutely. So that sort of brings us to the end of what we were going to chat about today. Just gives us a bit of time here for any questions that anyone might have.
Can I have a question? I suppose something to address, like if you do receive a no from an investor, how can you refine that approach going forward then for future potential investment?
I think it's important to understand, ask for feedback.
Yeah.
Um, and you're going to get so many no's, and the no's can be for so many different reasons. A lot of investors have really specific rules that they have set out, particularly funds or institutions or syndicates, um, where they expect to see you with X amount of revenue or a certain number of customers or at a certain stage or a certain scale. So often it's not you, it's them. So I think you have to take that on board. If you start hearing similar things being said,
Mm.
that's when you have to start to really look at your business a little bit closer and see what that thing is that keeps getting brought up and trying to resolve that issue. I think the frustration at the minute is that pre-revenue money is getting increasingly difficult to source. Most investors now want to see you with customers and they want to see revenue. Which is sensible, makes perfect sense, and they want to see some validation and also proof that you've executed on what you said you're going to do. So with that pre-revenue, really early money, I think that's where it really comes down to the relationship piece. It really comes down to someone sharing your vision and understanding the potential that's there, and where relationships really come into it. And I think it's funny. I think Ireland's angel investment community, I don't think is fully understood. I think we have the quite public angels who like to make a little bit of noise, and we see at events, and they're sort of well known in different sort of communities. But where I think our real angel investors are the folks up the road who've made a few quid in a very traditional business, who like to support other local entrepreneurs, and they like to quietly support people and quietly make those investments. I think that they're really the bedrock of sort of entrepreneurship in Ireland. And I think that's why make it be known that you are out there raising investment and that you're trying to build something and you want to do that. And then go through those networks that you know well, where you have personal relationships. And don't be afraid to mention that you're doing something and you're looking for people to come in and help you get there, and you want to reward them by, if they're early investors. Because asking for money isn't really in the Irish psyche. But in this game, you have to. And yeah, it takes a bit of a brass neck, as my granny would have said, but you have to do it.
Is there any particular common red flags that investors might look for, and how can new businesses or founders mitigate these?
I think the big red flags to avoid, yeah, I think it's if you're building technology and you're using lots of what's called no-code solutions,
Mm.
um, they can worry a lot of tech investors, because it's very difficult to scale those and make them really big, because someone else owns your technology. So that's a big, owning your own technology is very important. Um, I think the team piece, which we talked about at the beginning, making sure that you've all areas covered, is really important as well. And you have to be really honest and open about a lot of things as well. So if you've got past failures in business, don't be afraid to talk about them. Don't be afraid. Don't hide them. Be open and talk about them. Because I think most investors will understand that that's what got you to the position you're in today, and you'll have learned from what happened before. So I think that honesty piece, no one, as I've said before, no one likes surprises, and just being open's the most important thing.
And I suppose one other question, I guess, from me, is just what happens if an investor, wants to invest and you're happy to take the investment, but you're not comfortable with what they're looking for in return? What would your
Don't
advice be, or what's the experience?
don't be afraid to say no. I don't want your money, and that takes the biggest brass neck. Yeah, I used to watch Dragon's Den, and I stopped watching it when there was one episode where someone was pitching, the Dragons made an offer, and he went, actually, no, I don't want any of your money. And then they, as a panel, started sort of berating him for being disrespectful and rude. No, it's your business. You control who invests, whose money you take, and on what terms. And I think, Rochelle, as you said yourself, you're storing up problems if you take the wrong thing on the wrong terms. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, big brass neck and confidence. Ah.
That's great. I don't think there's any other questions there. So I suppose we can just thank everyone for your participation and especially to you, Michael, for joining us today as our
Oh,
guest, for
thank you
sharing
very much.
your valuable expertise, and also for you, Roisin, as well, for sharing your insights from the company secretarial side. So a recording of the webinar will be shared with all the attendees. If you do have any further questions or interested in learning more about our services that we offer to support your business, please don't hesitate to reach out to us via email at hello@canora.com or by calling us directly on 019059364. We'll also share your details as well, Michael, in our follow-up email. So thanks so
That's
much to
brilliant.
everyone, and hope you have a great week. Thank you.
Yep, thank you all very
Thanks,
much.
thanks
Thanks
for
for having me.
joining. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye now.
Bye. And I'm off to get a lamp sip. Apologies if my throat's very croaky and I sound a bit,
Oh,
yeah, everything's about to fall out of my. So yeah, I'm gonna get a lamp sip.
hope
But
you
thank
feel
you very
better soon.
much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
Bye-bye.
very
you.
much for having
Bye.
Bye.
me.